Hello there. These mass pro-Palestine protest plans for Armistice Day are provocative and disrespectful. Were it the other way round, Sadiq Khan and his Met Police would be lobbying the Home Office to block it. Confusion reigns. Tomorrow, the pro-Palestinian protesters will once again descend on London to air their strident calls for a cleansing between a river and a sea, whilst helped along by the useful idiots on the left of UK politics. Even though Jews in this country are now saying that Israel looks safer to them than London does. Think about that for a moment. And also, what would happen if the roles were reversed? And as I asked yesterday, I wonder how many Labour MPs we'll be seeing giving Hamas-style supporting speeches at these events tomorrow and next Saturday, the day before they then hypocritically line up wearing their poppies for the big Remembrance Sunday event. I bet these people are revelling in the way that our Remembrance observances are beginning to be shadow banned. Well, actually, some Labour Party politicians will not be attending a Remembrance parade. The Labour-run Barry Town Council in South Wales has cancelled their Remembrance Day parade. And why? Because a veteran was injured in the event 5 years ago. Yes, 5 years ago. Bet they wouldn't cancel a Pride or pro-Palestinian parade on that basis, would they? Oh, and it's been claimed that Keir Starmer somehow lost his poppy earlier in the week. He wore a poppy while giving a talk on Tuesday morning about his approach to the Gaza situation. But then, in the afternoon, it was conspicuously absent when he was talking to camera about Islamophobia. And his office said it was absurd to think that their leader could possibly perform such an act of fence-sitting. Must surely have been a mistake then. Or is he now too scared to wear a poppy in certain circumstances? Is Labour doing the unforgivable and forgetting those we promise never to forget because of the sacrifices they made? While the Hezbollah chief, Hassan Nasrallah, comes out of weeks of silence to praise the work of Hamas terrorists on the 7th of October and claims he knew nothing about it before it happened. And also saying it had exposed the frailty of Israel, comparing Israel to a spider's web. Depends how big the spider is to the fly, one supposes. And then the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken calls for a pause in hostilities to get aid through to those in Gaza who need it. And along comes Hassan Nasrallah to say the United States is completely responsible for the war raging in Gaza. It is the US that must pay the price for the crimes perpetrated in Gaza. As well as egging on the whole conflict by saying it would not end until Israel and its people are eradicated from the planet. What price a ceasefire now? And we crumble before the people that support that rhetoric. We've gone from a nation of barrel-chested warriors into soy latte guzzling anonymous keyboard warriors. And our Labour Party mob are still supporting these people, whether or not they understand that that's what they're doing. But here in the UK, we face more protests tomorrow, the 4th of November, calling for an Israeli-Hamas ceasefire, when the fireworks are meant to be on Sunday. But the pro-Palestine protesters have said they will conduct another set of protests next Saturday, the 11th of November. And the 11th of November is Armistice Day. Now, there is a lot of confusion among some press and politicians over this, and it's being exploited by those that would rather like to disrupt remembrance proceedings. Just for clarity, Armistice Day, known as Remembrance Day, is always on the 11th of November, whatever day of the week it falls on. And unless it falls on a Sunday, Armistice Day is usually a lower key event than the full Remembrance Sunday ceremony that takes place on the second Sunday of November. But there is always a 2-minute silence on Armistice Day and also on Remembrance Sunday. So there will be a 2-minute silence on both Saturday and Sunday next week. But when, like last year, the 11th of November fell on a Sunday, then it becomes a combined one-day ceremony. So next Saturday, the 11th of November, the nation will be called on to observe the tradition of the 2-minute silence at 11 a.m. And many might want to attend the Cenotaph or their local war memorial to do that. But it looks like there will be a massive pro-Palestine march through London at that time. And protests are not generally known for their silence, nor for an absence of hotheads. And this raises fears that protest will end up disrupting the nation's observance of the fallen. But there are now worries that this might also spill over into the main Sunday event. Now, doing what they've done before in London, that of hiding statues of our heritage in large black boxes to prevent them being defaced, is not good enough. That cannot be allowed to be the solution, especially on Remembrance Weekend. Now, for their part, the organisers of the protests have said they have no intention of disrupting events around the Cenotaph, and the police have said they won't allow it either. We need to hold them both to account if this fails, because, as I said, protests attract hotheads. Anyway, this 2-day event has allowed some to claim, either through ignorance or by design, that Remembrance Sunday is safe from interference, without acknowledging that the target date is Armistice Day, a day that is arguably the more important day, except for the pomp and pageantry, of course. Now, Tom Tugendhat, the Minister for Security, has called on the London Mayor Sadiq Khan and the Met Police and asked them to investigate what powers they have to ensure the two do not clash. He said that a protest taking place on Whitehall on Armistice Day was not an appropriate time or place for it. But Khan, it seems, says it's all up to the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. However, I would have thought that if the Mayor and the Met thought there might be concerns, they would ask the Home Office to act accordingly. And if they don't advise her either way, then how can Braverman make such orders with no advice from those on the ground? Surely that's how the system works. Not only that, according to the House of Commons Library, the Public Order Act 2023 does provide the police with the powers to restrict protests by placing conditions on them. So to me, Tugendhat asking the question does seem legitimate. Now, the PM Rishi Sunak has called plans for these protests on Armistice Day as both provocative and disrespectful. He also said there was a clear and present risk of desecration to the Cenotaph, as well as of other of our memorials, and that it would be an affront to the British people and the values we stand for. Also saying, I have asked the Home Secretary to support the Met Police in doing everything necessary to protect the sanctity of Armistice Day and Remembrance Sunday. Now I will ask a question. How many political and legal stops would be pulled out to ensure that a potentially divisive protest by UK natural citizens was not held in London during, say, Ramadan or Diwali, for example? In fact, it would already have been headed off at the pass. Not that it would ever happen, of course. And further, these lefty woke types want us to change Christmas into Winterval and Easter into Spring Festival, and all that other woke dross. But would they ever dare try to change the name of any other religion's festivals? No, they never would. Not one. And for completeness, I would urge you to head on over to the Gatestone Institute website to read about a very recent siege, a real siege, a full-on 9-month siege in the Republic of Artsakh in the South Caucasus that ended in September this year. And what the Azerbaijan troops did there to the Christian Armenians, rewarded by their government, makes for harrowing reading. But nothing from our Labour lovies at all on that, and they're the ones talking about sieges and genocide, but only in Gaza. They are not very consistent in their calls for humanity, are they? And that should ring huge alarm bells for anyone tempted to give them a chance of ruling this country once again. We can already see where their loyalties lie, and I fear it is not with the UK and its heritage.